Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. I'm your host, Peyman Askari. Joining me is Mr. Chris Dacey. Chris, how's it going?
And not too bad at all. Glad we could finally connect.
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. We'll get to that. Before we do, why don't we go through this absurd ritual where we go on X and repost this because apparently Elon Musk doesn't know how to program.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. Yeah, this is very strange. Click my. Yeah, I don't have an option to even share it in there.
So if you go into your profile, if you click on your profile photo where it says live,
doesn't say live. Where it says live.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Figure it out later. As long as you get yours up.
Yeah, you win this round, internet gods.
Yeah, take that. That's a different kind of used to a little. We were just talking off air about suppression a little bit, man. Now the feeds don't even go up. Just talking to the void.
I don't know. Like it's almost like Elon Musk is like, hey, let's see how far we can push these idiots before they get rid of their blue check mark. Like I don't even know why I'm paying them at this point. But enough about me. Let's talk about you and what we're going to go over today. I think a good starting off point would be the Ostrich farm. So if you could maybe tell people a little about yourself and how you got involved in that and what happened there.
Yeah, so I'm Chris Dacey. I'm an independent journalist from Ottawa. I normally cover kind of the protest scene and some of the politics stuff down there. I kind of ended up coming out here at the very last minute. I've been following this story for quite a while. It was over a year. The saga had been going on, so I was aware of it. But when the RCMP moved in with the CFIA and seized the farm, I was watching probably like a lot of people on live stream, and I was just absolutely shocked by what I was seeing. Started kind of covering it pretty in depth, and I had never had a story really that I covered keep traction like that and have so many impressions. I always get millions and millions of people were watching every day. And a good friend of mine, Sergeant Mike Rude, came out here, and I gave him a call and made the decision kind of last minute to fly out. I was thinking I'd come out here for a week or two and just see what happened. I ended up here. Well, I'm still here. I was here through the whole time. I've left, and I'm back at the farm now. So that's kind of how I ended up going out. It was on a whim, and I mean, I'm glad I did because it was one heck of a crazy time out here.
All right, now when you say the farm, you broke it down for me. There's multiple farm owners. Which one are you on?
Yeah, so Universal Ostrich Farms is the main farm in question. It was the one that had all the ostriches, but there are other properties around. And next door to this, there's a garlic, for lack of a better term, a garlic farm. Another farm beside it that's owned by a family member of the ostrich farm, but it's a completely separate farm. It never had ostriches. It doesn't have ostriches. It wasn't part of the initial quarantine. And when the RCMP moved in, they seized that secondary farm for operational purposes mainly, so they could get trucks in. They could bypass some of the stuff here, and they held that farm for 52 days.
This seizure, is it like a de facto seizure? They're like, oh, we need somewhere to park our trucks, or did they go through a court? How did they do it?
Yeah, so there was a warrant. There was a warrant issued for this property, a property beside it, and this other farm. They were all listed as Universal Ostrich Farms. So the warrant used to seize the garlic farm actually had the wrong names on it. It didn't have the property listed normally, and there was really no warning. So there had been a quarantine on the ostrich farm for quite some time. But this secondary seizure happened when the police moved in with the CFIA. Yeah.
Okay, sorry to press the issue, but like to me, a warrant is if you're doing something illegal. Did they just look at it? They're like, well, they're all the same family owners. Let's just do a blanket warrant.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, maybe they didn't do their homework. I find it hard to believe that they couldn't look up the title and find who owned it. I honestly think that they just took it because they could, like purely operationally. So they had their main command center on this property. They cut in an access from the highway into this property. They created roads and drove all over it through hay fields. So mainly it was logistical, I think. They had drone pilots operating off of that property. So it wasn't part of the quarantine property, the initially seized property, which is really a major issue, I think. I mean, there's lots of people have kind of been coming at the farm for various reasons. But this unique situation next door, it's a separately owned and unrelated property. So like if you're worrying about property rights issues and things like that, in this case, it appears that the government can just seize an unrelated property if it's in their interest and keep it for 52 days.
This sounds like the tired old trope about the FBI agents. Like, I'm commandeering this vehicle, official police business. So they commandeered the property, and like, did they give compensation? Did they even ask permission?
No, no. So they didn't ask permission. The family actually wasn't present here when their property, the garlic property, was seized. They watched, like, basically like everybody else, on live streams as police busted in their gate basically and took over the whole property. And they weren't served a warrant. They weren't told. They didn't actually see the warrant for 3 days, and that's when they found out some of these anomalies with the warrant. But it was a very strange thing. And you did mention, like, so criminal. I'm not sure exactly how these work. This is a warrant under the CFIA, so it's not a normal criminal type warrant. Anytime the RCMP were asked about it, they basically said, "Well, this isn't our warrant. We're just here keeping the peace, and we don't really know about it." So there wasn't really a way to get answers, and the CFIA, they were very lacking in their communication. They in fact never communicated with that second family.
You know, I know you're obviously a journalist. I'm not, but I talk to a lot of whistleblowers, and I recognize this pattern where they compartmentalize responsibility. So in this case, the RCMP would be like, "Well, we're not the ones that issued the warrant. The CFIA did. Don't go talk to them." But they're the ones that are executing the warrant.
Yeah, well, exactly. And they did seem to use that. To me, it sounded like a cop out. Every time you would ask anything, they cop out. Anytime you'd ask them anything, they would just say that exact thing. Well, it's not our warrant. We have video of them saying they don't really understand it, and it's kind of strange that this isn't usual. But none of that seemed to matter. They still occupied the property, and in fact, the family that was there, there's a police gate basically. So they did operationally, they called it a rest gate. So that's where their main kind of area was. It would be where people would have seen many of the interactions between police and supporters and things. But this family from the garlic property, their gate was in behind that. So every time they wanted to get in and out of their property, they had to stop at this armed checkpoint, and the RCMP had to allow them in and out each time. And that caused a lot of friction at times. There was some pretty heated exchanges there, and that family was treated pretty terribly. They were followed around by drones constantly. Police were antagonizing them. It was a pretty nasty scene.
Dude, what the hell's going on with the RCMP? Like, they used to be a respectable law enforcement agency. Now they scare the hell out of me. Like, I don't look them in the eye. I cross the street if I see them. I get freaked out around them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you now. I kind of was like that for a while after the convoy in Ottawa, and some of the stuff I did after. I've had some pretty nasty experiences with police, and it took me a long time to even be okay being around them without really getting worked up or without looking over my shoulder. And I kind of had gotten there, I thought, but going through this, it's just completely undone that entirely. When I see an RCMP vehicle now, my heart kind of speeds up, and it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. A lot of people sometimes accuse me or think that I may be anti-police. I never was anti-police my entire life. I mean, I kind of grew up with a healthy respect for law enforcement. I have friends in law enforcement. But until the convoy and everything after that has really shattered that perspective for me.
You know, I'm the same way. Like, usually back in the day when somebody said they hate cops or they hate lawyers, it's almost a given that they broke the law somewhere. But now it's like you're law abiding, but you still get you run afoul of the law.
Yeah, and it seems that innocent people can get scooped up in stuff like this, and there doesn't seem to be any recourse for it. There's no mechanism to stop these things when they're happening in real time. And in my experience, there's rarely, if ever, any kind of accountability after. Sometimes you might get an acknowledgement years later, maybe, if you're really lucky. But I mean, that's not really accountability, in my opinion.
So before we move on, if you had to explain to somebody who hasn't been following this at all what happened, like, what was the grand story of the CFIA, the ostriches, and the adjacent garlic farm?
Yeah, so it would be about a year ago, give or take. There were a number of birds. There was over about 400 birds here, ostriches. And about a year ago, a number of birds got sick, and a small number died. I think it was maybe 15%, which is, I mean, still a few birds, but wasn't like a major outbreak. Often, say if it was H1 or avian flu, normally takes out like 80% of a flock. So they didn't really think that it was that, the family at the time. They did do, I believe they tested 2 dead birds initially, way back, using PCR tests with like 40 something cycles. And they did, those were positive. They didn't test any of the live birds. And this thing ran through the illness ran through the farm. And all the birds left were basically healthy. And initially, I guess it was an anonymous complaint that led to people here initially. So you make what you will of that. And so that happened. And normally these things, they move really quick. But in this case, the farm was able to legally get a few things going and get some injunctions. And this dragged on for almost a year. So it gave a lot of time for this story to kind of circulate through the news. And in that time, all the birds were healthy by that point. So the family was asking, can we test the birds? Why slaughter these healthy animals? For one, if they were sick, then they would probably have immunities. If they survived and an illness went through, then they would have immunities or possibly antibodies that could help, perhaps help in preventing further outbreaks or research. So that was a big thing. And then the CFIA actually refused to allow them to be tested. They weren't allowed to test them on their own. A bunch of people came out and offered to pay for the testing. In fact, if they were tested, it would have been a charge. So if you test the bird, 6 months in jail and $200,000 fine per bird tested.
You tested them?
Yeah, to test the bird. So like not only were you not allowed, but if you did, 6 months in jail and $200 fine per test per bird.
Okay, this is, like I'm a big property rights guy. I looked at this. I was like, this is a property rights violation. Just get off the guy's farm. Like, just let people be. But a lot of people, they said, there is a public concern to take into consideration. But like throwing people in jail for testing birds that belong to them? What the hell's going on in Canada?
Yeah, that one is really bizarre. And I'm not trying to make light of some of the risks here. Like I do know that avian flu is a risk. It's not really a risk to humans or the food supply in that sense. The birds get sick. As far as I know, there may be 1 or 2 cases ever of people getting it. But it doesn't, it doesn't really transfer through meat or cooked meat, right? So, and these aren't meat animals. So there's a few things going on there. But yeah, and then as far as the property rights thing, like this farm, you have the health issue and the quarantine, and that's a much more complicated story. The garlic farm next door, to me, is very black and white. It's an unrelated farm. It doesn't have ostriches, never had ostriches, wasn't under quarantine, and it was seized. It was stolen, half destroyed, and the family was terrorized. So like that one to me is very, very black and white. And that's something that I think most people, if they know the story, we're going to start really trying to tell that story now that that family has filed a lawsuit that went out last week before. So now that lawsuit's filed, there's going to be a lot more information coming out, and we're going to start sharing more of that story and what happened there. But it's absolutely shocking to me.
So we got another question from the audience. It's going back to the ostrich side of the farm. JT asks, were these ostriches not considered research animal because of previous research? And was the argument not that research animals need to be slaughtered similarly to lab rats? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. So they are research animal. There was research being done on these animals, but no, it wasn't the case that like it was a trial, and once that trial was done, they needed to be slaughtered. I have heard of that. I think mostly with small animals, rodents and things. That wasn't the case here, but there was science going on and research going on for antibody research specifically.
All right. Well, let's put the ostriches in the rearview mirror. The other thing I wanted to get your opinion on was Tumbler Ridge. It's a very sensitive issue. It's delicate because so many kids tragically died. But I don't know. What do you think is going on in the country?
Man, that is a heavy question. There's definitely some problems. One of the biggest problems is that it's so sensitive that we're not even really supposed to be able to talk about this. We can't talk about a person being trans. We can't talk about a possible, mental illness or anything like that without being ostracized or kicked off the internet or even possibly charged, or we could end up in front of the human rights tribunal. Like we saw Barry Newfield just got nailed at $750K. So there is a major problem in being able to talk about this, and it seems to me that this, at least in this case, there were issues that were known. The RCMP had attended that house many times. They knew there were issues there, and I don't know if it's because of the status. I don't know how to say that, but of the individual in question, of the shooter, that they just stayed hands off. I'm not really sure, but if that is the case, then that is a major concern.
Yeah, man. Like you just mentioned the tribunals. I know we're jumping around now, but everyone is focused on the UK with all like they got like 10,000 arrests for speech by hate speech. Well, yeah, but their penalties were like $750. $750,000 dollars arrest for this gentleman to call a woman who's doing striptease artists artwork, calling her a striptease artist, basically telling the truth. Like
Yeah,
this
well,
is the opposite of a shotgun approach.
yeah, and I mean, he was telling the truth. You can find the stuff. The person was appeared to be a striptease artist. That's what they were doing. They were posting the stuff themselves. And I don't know when it became. Well, it's not against the law, right? So this isn't law. This is tribunals. So it's a really strange place where he didn't break the law, as far as I know. He was arrested at one point, and that's a new thing too. Like, do people normally get arrested for civil matters? Don't think so.
Well, you bring up another issue, like the whole civil and criminal. The RCMP is encroaching on the domain of civil now, whereas before they might just say, "Hey, it's not our responsibility." Now they'll come and arrest you for civil violations.
Yeah, it seems there's a lot of encroachment, and that's similar to the case here, I guess, as well, right? So it wasn't a criminal warrant; it was a CFIA, so it's a bureaucracy, an unelected bureaucracy that got this warrant, and then you have the RCMP coming in as basically as a paramilitary protection force. It's yeah, we're going down some slippery slopes here, and it's happening fast, it seems.
Okay, yeah, I didn't ask you. I was going to let this go, but you just brought it up again. The CFIA. You mentioned earlier that they issued a warrant. Yeah, you can tighten your wording if that's not exactly what happened, but normally it has to go through a court. Maybe the CFIA went to the court and got the warrant, but it's just weird.
Yeah, so it would be a court, but then not a criminal court. I'd have to check the warrant to see exactly who issued it. But they did have a warrant. They had a warrant to seize the Ostrich property and the quarantine initially. These other warrants came later, but it was the same type of process. It wasn't criminal. So I mean, it must go through a court, but I'd have to look into that further to get the exact details of that.
I'll tell you that Helen Gruse's attorney, Bathsheba Vandenberg, and she was like schooling me. She says it's not just the human rights commissions, the human rights tribunals. There's a whole whack of them. Like there's one for property rights in BC. There's one for workers' compensation. I think like parking violations or speeding violations. They are I call it a coup. Like they're creating an alternative court system that's staffed by idiots.
Yeah, so it's a parallel system kind of, and it yeah, staffed by idiots is probably putting it lightly. Um, but they're doing an end around the law, basically. Seems to me, anyways.
Yeah, sorry, you froze there for a second. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
look,
agree. They're doing an like an end run around the law because, as you mentioned, they don't have to pass hate speech legislation. They can just ram it through the tribunals.
yeah, and like you say, it's there are a lot of these tribunals, not just the Human Rights Tribunal, and it seems that they're all being weaponized in a certain way against basically a specific group of people. Well, anyone right of Stalin, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we're gonna be one of the first ones to go. They're not
Yeah,
exactly reaching out to us to run for the tribunals.
yeah. Yeah, we maybe we'll end up in the same gulag together. Who knows?
Here, yeah. Yeah, but like getting back to this Tumblr Ridge thing, like, do you think I don't know where the chicken and egg is, whether uh, transgenderism is the mental illness or whether pharmaceuticals are going to these children that have mental illness and they're like, "Hey, kids, want to be trans?" Like they're trying to manipulate them.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things going on there, right? I mean, there has been this transgender thing probably for quite some time, but it's a very small percentage of the population. And I mean, up until recently, it was classified as a mental illness, dysphoria, or I forget the exact terms. Um, but like you say, when you start adding hormones, puberty blockers, SSRIs, and you start putting all kinds of chemicals into a teenager in particular, With adults, if adults can make their own decisions, we don't need to go there right now. But to do this to young people who are already, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, puberty's not the easiest thing. High school's not the easiest thing, right? Most people feel a little off at some point while they're growing up. And not only are they pumping people full of hormones and drugs, it's now basically illegal to try to help these people in any other way. You can't counsel them. You can't, you can't do anything really, or they call it, is it conversion something? Anyways, it's basically illegal to not affirm these people now. And I think that's a major problem as well.
It is. The gender affirming care bill, which is the most nonsensically named bill because you're the anti-gender affirming, you're gender non-affirming. It's something weird. I think people are waking up and they've awoken from a slumber and they realize everything is broken. But the people at the wheel in every institution, they're pushing this agenda.
Yeah, it seems to be being pushed, you're right, everywhere. And it doesn't seem to matter that, even if a large part of the population doesn't agree, that doesn't matter to the people to the people in charge. This ideology seems to be ingrained and pervasive in all levels of government, in all levels of bureaucracy. It's basically baked into the system now. And even if people do decide that maybe this isn't good and they've had enough, I think it's going to be very difficult to undo that damage and to pull this and disentangle it from everywhere it's gotten its grips into.
The after the Tumbler Ridge shooting, the BC Human Rights Commissioner, I forget her name, she came out and instead of talking about the kid that the shooter that murdered all these children, she just threw into this attack on cisgender men. She actually used the word cisgender in her release.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's very concerning, and I've seen that same sort of thing widely in a lot of places. There's a lot of that going around on X here too. People saying that white cis male is the most dangerous thing and a terrorist and all these things, while completely ignoring the obvious problems right in front of our face.
By people, you mean Rachel Gilmore?
Yeah, among other. Yeah, I didn't even want to say her name. Yeah, not just her, but yes, she's one of the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, when this happened, I knew this happens every time. The right, because the right is always reacting, they overreact. So I was like, I'm just going to give it a few days. And then I went over to Blue Sky and I was watching over there. Nobody used the word trans. I went through maybe like 30 posts. Do you know what Blue Sky is? It's a left-leaning X version. And one used the word trans, but they're like, all these right-wing lunatics, white supremacists, they're blaming it on transgenderism.
Yeah, I mean, look at the facts in the case. I mean, they're not really, and you're right. It is, the right is very reactive. Everyone's reactive on the internet, right? Everybody wants to be first, and particularly in major cases like this, it's probably better to take a breath and make sure we know exactly what's going on. But there's a reason that people think this stuff. It's based on evidence and experience. There's been a number of cases like this. It's happening more and more often, and it seems to be increasing, if anything.
Yeah, there's that old saying, who are you going to believe, me or your own lying eyes? Like Charlie Kirk got killed by one of those that Catholic school shooting in the US as well. And I think you just, maybe not this guy wasn't trans, but you mentioned that the brother, the shooter, was also involved in a shooting.
Yeah, so I think that broke yesterday. The brother, 22-year-old brother of the shooter at Tumbler Ridge, was wanted on a Canada-wide arrest warrant for attempted murder, and that was from an incident. I believe it was back in 2024 in Fort McMurray. From what I read, it seemed like it was a stabbing, possibly. But yeah, the brother also a history of violence there. Probably not related. I don't know too much about it other than that. Came out yesterday. What we do know too about the Tumbler Ridge incident is that the RCMP were well aware of this family and some of the problems going on there. Can't remember exactly how many times they attended that house, but it was it was close to 10, I think. So they definitely knew there were some issues in advance. And I just have to wonder, if it was me and the police came to my house 10 times, there probably wouldn't be guns in my house anymore. I'd probably be in jail.
Oh, you'd definitely be in jail. Like the threshold for throwing somebody like you in jail is probably one visit. That's it.
Yeah. Jaywalking out of here.
Yeah.
No. But it seems that there's different rules for different people in this country now, and it's that's a major problem. When the law doesn't apply equally, you get into a very dangerous place.
Yeah, I think the RCMP has been infiltrated as well. I'm using that word loosely, but like you have drag queen story hour at the RCMP. You got all these like transgendered people
Yeah,
dancing in front of RCMP at their events.
maybe not maybe infiltrated, but they're definitely ideologically captured. You see, they have cases of missing children, and they're doing land acknowledgements and things before they even start talking about missing kids, or they have an active shooter situation and they got to pause to do their woke prostrating before they get going. Like it's a really bizarre thing. The police should be out there giving you the facts and out there doing police work, not stealing farms and doing land acknowledgements.
What do they say? Woman in a dress, be on the lookout for a woman in a dress for the
Yeah.
trans shooter in Tumblr.
Yeah, and I mean, when there's an active shooter, a good description is imperative, right? Like, we need to know who this person is and who to watch out for. And if you can't tell us the basic facts about the suspect, we're in really, really bad place. This isn't the first time this has happened either, I don't think. These
I think
descriptions.
this is a continuation of what they did with race. Like they kept saying like Middle Eastern man, Iranian man, black man, and then they're like a man, 20 to 50.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
well, what color is he? What color hair?
Yeah, it's very strange where these things like, and yeah, I don't know how, if this, yeah, I honestly don't know. It's completely shocking still to me when I see it. I've seen it so many times, but when it happens, it still gets me. Like, this is not right. We need the information. And the fact that they would say, if it was me, they would say white male, whatever, whatever. They would describe me perfectly. But if you don't fit in certain boxes or the narrative isn't right, they just omit half the information or give you the wrong information.
Like a white male goes by the name of Chris Dacey, license plate, social security
Yeah, yeah,
number.
yeah. Address, probably dox
Yeah,
me while they're at it.
release the DNA profile. Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
yeah, I guess. What was the other thing? I guess the other one we were going to talk about was the human rights tribunals, which we touched on. $750,000, like, and they add insult to injury because they come out and they say we think this is an appropriate level of fine.
Appropriate. Yeah. I mean, does anyone get fined that much ever for anything? I I don't think so. And I mean, this is a guy whose career, he was 27 years, I think, as a school board trustee incumbent before this happened. Um, he has a good record. I actually sat down with him for an interview a little while ago, a few months ago, at his house, and I asked him, were you kind of did you ever have any problems throughout that tenure? And he said the only time he ever got any kind of trouble was some meeting where he dozed off one time in 27 years. I guess he was tired and he kind of nodded off. But other than that, I mean, he'd been doing that job for years. I don't think that job is a highly paid job either. Um, and then to go after the guy with a 27-year record and charge of 750K is crazy. I mean, I don't see how they can ever get that money. Like, you can't take blood from a stone.
It reminds me of the Alex Jones one where they charged him like $1 billion. Like at this point, just make up the number, like $1 quintillion. That's how much you owe.
Yeah, yeah, everything. Give us everything. And then he actually ended up getting arrested as well earlier on. So I mean, there's some issues there. So they charge you something, you can't afford to pay it, and if you don't pay it, they throw you in jail now. That's a very, very strange place we're at.
We're turning into the Middle East. I'm from Iran, and if in Iran, if you can't pay your debts, you go to jail. So that's where we're headed.
Yeah, heading there quickly too.
There's actually a question down here from Laureen. Who gets the $750,000? Is it the striptease lady?
That's a very good question. Maybe that. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I'll have to look into that. But I'm sure the government takes a cut.
Well, of course, it's Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Al Capone, they skim off the top.
Well, that's so wild too. So that can happen, and that can go to the tribunal. But I'm sure you probably have a similar problem. But I get called all kinds of heinous things. I've had people lie about me, slander me. For a while, they were putting up posters all over downtown Ottawa calling me a groomer for my work with Save Canada, and the young men with Save Canada. So it'd be a giant picture of my face on posts all over downtown. Chris Dacey, groomer, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, can I sue for? Can I go? I want 750 grand too.
You can try, but the people that
Yeah.
are in the tribunal, they disagree with you. It's a kangaroo court. I mean, we were talking yesterday about who's that psychopath and liberal cabinet minister Yara Sachs, who said Hong Kong is the new Heil Hitler.
Oh,
That
yes.
there's she called everybody a Nazi that went to Ottawa. She should be paying $750 to all of those people.
Yeah, and I mean, she's not the only one. I've had Peter Julian, who was, I think, the House leader of the NDP at the time, called me and my watermark extremist in the House of Commons on the record. And then you get these, I think it was Press Progress wrote an article about it, and then Anti-Hate was on it. And, so you can have these politicians in the House of Commons slandering people while protected by their parliamentary privilege. And then you can have these government-funded rags writing stories about it, about the lies they said, and there's nothing I can do about it. Just goes out there. There's hit pieces like crazy about me out there. It's absolutely wild. And he's not the only one that's come after me from the House of Commons. Charlie Angus too is a bad one. He's come after me a few times. Both NDP in that case. But
Charlie Angus. I
yeah.
was talking to oh Lord, I forget her name now. Eva Z, or something like that, of the Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights Organization. And she said that Anti-Hate has slandered them numerous times and called them a hate group. Like that's hate speech. But like they're redefining the definition of hate speech so that it only includes the stuff that we accuse them of, not the other way around.
Yeah, and they use these names like anti-hate or anti-fascist. Anytime there's an anti in front of it, you can just basically assume that they are that second word, right? Like the anti-hate is just a hate group. They go out and they slander and they post hate about people. The anti-fascists are fascists. They scream you down in the street, and in my case, I got jumped and beaten trying to cover them. It's pretty wild. They're exactly the opposite of what they call themselves.
Yeah, like Antifa. Do you remember when Antifa they beat up, or they actually beat up Billboard Chris? The cops were just standing there laughing. I'm like, why do we need you guys if you're not going to defend us? Just tell us, take the law into your own hands.
Yeah, well, the other problem is that not only will they not defend us, if I defend myself, I go to jail. It's worse than that. And Chris, I know Chris has been attacked numerous times. I've been attacked quite a few times, but once in Ottawa, very badly. I was covering an event. It was a trans event of some sort, or pride event, hosted by Faye Johnstone, and it had union members there. Members of Parliament were there. It was a pretty big event in Confederation Park, and I was just trying to film it. I was on the peripheral of it. When we went up, I was there with Rob Krychek, and we got immediately approached by people in Black Bloc who started shoving us, and it got a little hectic. So we kind of backed off, and I went back in to try to get some B-roll and just some footage. At least I could talk maybe with the crowd behind me. I couldn't get in and cover it really because of the attacks. But while I was doing that, somebody masked in Black Bloc came out, and they went for my phone, trying to get my phone at first. And when that didn't work, I got clubbed over the head. Black man, my face was bad. Went down, and suddenly there's two people on top of me, and they're hitting me, and it was a pretty wild scene. And it took 45 minutes for the police to arrive. They didn't investigate, and the case went cold almost immediately.
Both, I used the word infiltrated. You used ideologically captured. The RCMP is more aligned with this. Their leadership, the ones that they report to, they're more supportive of this Antifa, LGBTQ movement.
I mean, in Ottawa, it seems to be kind of similar. I don't have a bunch of experience with other police forces, I guess, but in my experience with Ottawa police, there's definitely different approaches to different groups. It's not just Antifa or the Pride type groups. It's also the Palestinian protests. They can do basically whatever they want: set off smoke, attack people, block streets, paint stuff. Doesn't really matter. There's certain groups that can just kind of run roughshod all over town. But then you get a guy with a Canadian flag on the hill, and you see him in handcuffs. So it's two very, very different approaches.
Yeah, I'll give you another example. When I go to Victoria, sometimes I go to these events in this church, and every time I go, these Antifa thugs, they show up in like the balaclava and they're intentionally intimidating these good churchgoers. If you did that, if you and your white buddies did that to like a Sikh temple or a Hindu temple, you'd be in handcuffs immediately. You would spend you wouldn't be you'd be denied bail.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they're often too now passing these laws or bubble laws to protect certain things, right? And only certain groups. I know, in fact, in Ottawa, Bikers Church, Capital City Bikers Church, is the church I go to in Ottawa, and it's been targeted by community groups, by protesters. It's been vandalized, all kinds of stuff, and you never really hear about that or anything, and nothing ever really comes of it. But if it was turned around the other way, you can bet there would be some action.
No. Speaking of which, didn't a church just burn down in Montreal again?
Yeah, I saw that last night. Yeah, yeah. I don't know the details, but add that to the list. And then I see people making the argument, well, some of them weren't arson or whatever. It's over 100 churches have been burned or vandalized. It's not one or two. And yeah, some of them, maybe a few of them were electrical fires or old buildings, possibly. But if one temple or mosque or anything like that that got vandalized or burnt down, it would be the front page story for a week at least. And meanwhile, we got 100 of them.
They should overlay the number of church burnings in Canada over time with the immigration rate in Canada over time. It's like a perfect match.
I'm sure there's a correlation there.
Yeah, whoever uploads it will probably go to in front of a tribunal, though.
I think too, it's important to point out that this vandalism and what's happening to the churches is very much could be laid at the feet of the government. I remember those, downtown Ottawa, the flag on the Peace Tower being at half-mast for, man, it was months and months and months and months. Little shoes, displays, and they were telling us about these mass graves and all these problems. And here we are years out, not a single shred of proof, whole bunch of money given, a whole bunch of churches burned, a whole bunch of hate and division created. And it seems to me that it was all a lie.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's never any consequence. This ostrich farm, the garlic farm, let's say they do find that the RCMP is in the wrong. Maybe they'll give them some restitution for, back pay on rent. Maybe like a watered down apology. I don't think you'll see any officers go to jail or legislators have to pay millions of dollars out of pocket.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. If there is a settlement, right, it's the taxpayers that have to pay that, for one. And you're right. As far as people going to jail, that's highly unlikely. I imagine the RCMP would, or whoever, would try to settle way before it ever got. They don't want what happened here getting on the record. That's for sure. But who do you go to when the police are the ones? When the police are the criminals? It's a difficult situation.
Do you know Mayor Jeff Colvin out of Chestermere, Alberta?
No.
I'll give you the watered down version. You said, who do you go to when the police are breaking the law in Alberta? If that happens, the police fall under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So Jeff Colvin basically uncovers that the police are involved in a corruption scheme in his city. And he goes to the minister of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver, and he wasn't aware that Rick McIver was a part of this fraud, this money embezzlement scheme.
He was part of it.
And the police, I guess he tipped off the RCMP. They came to arrest Jeff Colvin for spying on the citizens. And he figured this out, and he went to the AG, and they're like, what the fuck's going on? And it turns out they put like one IP camera in the data room because people were stealing stuff from the data room. And they tried to use that as justification to arrest an elected mayor that was uncovering fraud of the RCMP.
Yeah, so they ignore the corruption and go after the person shining the light on it.
Well, they are the corruption.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. And I mean, we're seeing more and more stories coming out of corruption. We have in Toronto, where I don't know if it was 8 or 9 officers were arrested so far. And in fact, Ontario, I believe, is launching a province-wide corruption probe, for what that's worth. But there's more and more of these stories actually starting to come out now and get out. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, though, I fear.
When I heard about that Ontario arresting those officers, I was like, well, they must have been the good guys, like Helen Bruce.
Yeah, well, that's normally the case. What they did to Helen was absolutely egregious. In this case, they were bad dudes. I mean, it's basically organized crime in Toronto. They're accused of plotting the murder of a jail supervisor, I believe it was. Leaked his address. Hitmen were involved. It's pretty wild stuff. Yeah.
I haven't heard of anything like that since I think it was the '90s. There was a book written, "Road to Hell." It described the Andre Belushi was the Quebec officer that went after the Hells Angels because they killed a prison guard.
Okay, yeah, I
You
don't
remember
know
that?
that one specifically, but yeah, it's kind of a similar thing. When you read it, you'd swear you were reading the script of a movie. It doesn't seem like it's something that could really be possible, but I guess the organized crime has their claws in a lot. The tow truck industry down there is a big problem. Extortion, stuff's blowing up, things are on fire. It's like the Wild West sometimes.
Jesus Christ, what happened to this once beautiful country?
Yeah, it's not the country I thought it was. That's for sure.
I uh, I've done a couple of road trips through America lately, and every time I get pulled over by the police, like the state troopers, the highway troopers, they're so polite to me. Like, "Hello, sir. How are you doing, sir? I'll let you off with a warning." I get pulled over by RCMP, man. Like, I'm worried they're gonna club me or something. I'm going like 10 over the speed limit or on my phone, and they don't just want to give me a ticket. They want the confession. They're like, you realize that you were in the wrong. I saved your life, buddy.
Yeah, and I mean the RCMP really get to me now though. Like, there's times where I left here and I pull out and there's an RCMP vehicle parked on the corner. As soon as I see those lights or those things behind me, often I'm pretty recognizable too. I was driving around with Mike in a big dually that's all wrapped up and whatnot, so we're pretty easy to spot. You get these guys rolling up behind us and makes me nervous. Makes me nervous. And I know what they can do. I've seen what they can do. I've seen them go after innocent people. I've seen, good people just absolutely put through the ringer of the judicial system. Um, it's not just paranoia. They can come after you and they can destroy your life. And you could be
Yeah.
innocent and you can still do that.
We didn't talk about this, but what's your view on what happened to the Coots boys?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a wild one too. I didn't the last one just get out of jail, I think, recently, I believe. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, they were set up probably to be fall guys, right? They needed some sort of reason to come and attack us in Ottawa, and they were able to kind of manufacture it with them. Um, the fact that these guys were put in jail and left in jail for so long, we got people that are attempted murderers, all kinds of horrible criminals. They're out on bail 6 different times. Um, this was an example being set, and I think they needed to use them to so that they could justify the Emergencies Act and their illegal activity in Ottawa to clear us out of Ottawa.
You mentioned that there's murderers out there. We have a government that used martial law against protesters. The court ruled that it was illegal, and there's been no consequence.
Yeah, zero. And yeah, and just recently I saw, I think it was it South Korea possibly, but they enacted martial law, and the person in charge there is given a life sentence for doing it. Like there was
What?
accountability. Yeah, they were going to go. They were asking for the death penalty, but yeah, it wasn't exactly the same situation. But he enacted martial law, and it was done illegally. It was the president or prime minister, whoever was in charge, and he's been given a life sentence for doing that now. Whereas here, it's illegal. It's been found illegal. It's been upheld in the court that it's still illegal. Everybody that was involved is just running around, just still doing their thing. In fact, they
Yeah,
actually probably got promotion. Like they're failing upward, right? You got
yeah, they
Christian
feel.
Freeland running off to Ukraine. I think they gave another 2 billion there today. Um, yeah, another one of them too took the job. I think in England maybe as like the High Commission or something or ambassador, some type of high profile job in the UK. So these people are kind of just exiting into their cushy after politics jobs, big money jobs, and no consequences. In fact, they're getting rewarded.
Well, David Lametti, who was, he's the attorney general when the Emergency Act was invoked, he just failed upwards. Like he got hired by a law firm. Like that law firm should be investigated, in my opinion.
Yeah, they all seem to fail upward. Everyone fails upward. And the people that are in these jobs, some of them may be technically qualified, but a lot of them aren't qualified at all to even be in these positions. And they just keep swapping them around. And you do a good enough job, I guess. Like, no, not good in the sense of actual good, but you do what toe the party line. Abuse the citizens, enact martial law, whatever, and off you go up to the next step.
They're useful. They're useful for the party.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, the other one, Mendocino, was another one. He lied in Parliament. He said the RCMP told me this, and the RCMP's like, we never told him that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're all liars. I've ran into Marco quite a few times downtown in Ottawa, and we've had some chats. In fact, I confronted him about the tanks comment where he was talking about using a tank in Ottawa, maybe done tongue in cheek, but we asked him about that, and he off camera, mind you, but he admitted that that probably wasn't real good.
You know, we're bouncing around from topics, but I want to talk to you about the military. The Trudeau administration went to the military. They're like, "Would you like to come in and put this protest down?" And the military's like, "Go pound sand." And then next thing you know, you get like tampons in the military. I'm sure it was a long term process, but they seems to be they want to take over the military as well because they actually still have some integrity.
Yeah, I think they have largely taken over the military. I mean, the top general there is certainly ideologically captured. Just look at any of her press conferences. She was out recently apologizing for racism and a whole bunch of other stuff. And you're right about that's not a rumor. There are tampons in the men's washrooms at basically every military base. There's often progressive pride flags flying. It's not the military that I recall, anyways.
A couple of my buddies they're like ex CAF, and they're telling me stories about Canadian Armed Forces, Special Forces. They've just thrown in the towel. They're like, if America invades, we're siding with the Americans. We're not supporting this government.
Well, and I don't even know how deployable or operational our forces are at this point. Our numbers are very low. A lot of good officers and the people with experience, not just officers, reg force as well, have left. During COVID, there's a large number of people that were just basically turfed right out of the military for refusing vaccinations, and the entire culture seems to have been lost compared to I know mostly older guys. I don't know about young guys now, but from talking to them, it's not the same at all. And I don't know how you fix that, honestly. If you lose the culture, you lose the skills and that warfighting ability without the older people to train and to bring the new ones along. That's a very difficult task.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's not like engineering where you can find it in a book. Like you have to
Yeah,
actually be out there and have a real world battle experience.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Which kind of ties into another issue, the recent amendments to immigration to fast track people with military experiences. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're desperate. They're saying pilots and doctors and things like that, but you can kind of imagine where this will go. We already have parades where it's like it's an all Sikh, whatever military parade, Canadian Armed Forces, maybe Canadians, but all Sikh. Maybe we're just going to have different contingents. We'll have a Chinese platoon. We'll have a brigade from wherever. I know they're desperate to do it, but what concerns me is that bringing in people like that who don't have an attachment to the country is very concerning. It kind of reminds me a little bit about like in Ottawa where they swapped out all the police at the end before they beat the shit out of us. They bring in people, they tell them whatever they need to, and they have no attachment, right? They don't have a personal attachment to the place. They don't really know what's going on. If you bring in a whole bunch of foreign soldiers, it's I question where their allegiances might lie.
So, Clown World kind of preempted my question. Not to worry, we'll soon have an army of mercenaries. It's the fall of Rome.
Yeah, well, that's what they are, mercenaries. And then at the same time, we have like the RCMP, who are basically militarized at this point, right? We have laws that are supposed to protect us from the Canadian government using the armed forces against us. You might be able to deploy the armed forces in an emergency, like a natural disaster, some sort of thing like that. But you're not allowed to deploy the Canadian military on the Canadian people. But if you militarize the RCMP, and they look like, honestly, they look like military, they might be better equipped than our military, actually. Quite possibly, honestly, from what I've seen. Then that's just another end around that law.
I saw a picture the other day of the what do you want to call it? The Irish Civil War or whatever, the war in Ireland, and the IRA Sinn Féin the way they were dressed, they look like me when I'm out like digging a ditch. And then you contrast that with the RCMP, you're right. They look like professional soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, they all seem to be most of them in like SWAT type outfits. They got heavy vests. They got all kinds of wild weapons. I mean, these drone pilots they had around here. You should have seen these guys. Multiple drone crews flying Chinese drones. I think that have now been grounded just for good measure.
Yeah, it's
You
crazy.
can't
It's
make this
wild.
stuff up, man.
This fast tracking of foreign people with military experience for immigration, I kind of looked at that. I'm like, the military is one of those. It's like a sacred institution. Honestly, it's even more sacred than the judiciary. Like if you outsource your military, it's game over. Like you give guns to people that aren't you, they're going to be like, why do we need these people that call themselves citizens?
Yeah, it's a good point. And like you say, that no allegiance. And meanwhile, none of us are allowed to have guns, or soon none of us will be allowed to have guns, right? So you're bringing in foreign soldiers, arming them, and taking away our ability to defend ourselves.
What are you getting at, Chris? Are you trying to say that they're up to something?
They may be, they may be. Well, and I
That's
mean, we joke and whatnot, but like we are very quickly becoming a major security threat to our neighbors to the south. I mean, we already are. We don't protect the north properly. Our military is inadequate. Our planes are obsolete, and man, we're doing a lot of sketchy things down here. Meanwhile, we have our government talking smack all day long about the U.S., but we've been terrible neighbors, in my opinion, for a long time. And
I don't understand.
we're becoming a real threat, like an actual threat to national security in the U.S., I believe.
Well, read the national security strategy document that they put out in November. Like Trump wants to go in an opposite direction that's more capitalist, a little bit more liberty. Whereas Canada, we're like, guys, we're running out of time. We gotta march towards communism quickly.
No, we're at a full sprint at this point towards communism. I think. Like we are basically we're just about there. And if the trend continues, man, like what's it going to look like in a year?
When the April election happened, I was asking people like, what's Canada going to look like in 25 years, 50 years? But you're right. Like, what's it going to look like in 1 year if we were handing out $750,000 fines for these things?
Yeah, and these things are kind of a slow burn, right? It's like the curve, right? It starts slow, but once you start getting up into this exponential part, it just skyrockets, and it happens so fast. And I think that's where we're at about to go vertical here, and not in a good way.
Canadians are just not waking up. I give the example of Carthage, like the Roman soldiers. They've scaled the walls. They're in the town, and the Canadians are like, "Oh, this is amazing vino. Let's do a backyard barbecue."
The barbarians are everywhere. Oh, man.
Right. This- we're near the end of the episode. Do you want to tell people you got anything else you want to cover?
I think we jumped around a lot there, but yeah, I think we hit on quite a few things.
Do you want to tell the audience how they can follow you and support your work?
Yeah, so basically all of my work goes up onto X at Chris Dacey on X, or search Dacey Media. You might find me a few other places, but mainly on X. I have a subscription option there if people want to support me that way, or if anybody would like to support me directly, they can do so by e-transfer to daceymedia@gmail.com. But follow on X, and you'll get all the scoop from what I'm covering.
Are you working on anything big?
Not a ton right now. I mean, I still got a lot to do about this garlic farm and some of that. In March, I believe there's NCI hearings in Kelowna, so I'm going to stick around out here till those NCI hearings. Mainly about farmers, but it's also going to include some stuff about the ostrich farm here. So I'm going to head down to Kelowna and cover that, and then I guess I'll make my way back to Ottawa and see if I can't get into a little trouble there.
Why don't you stick around Alberta for a while? You never know. There might be good things coming up in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I spent a good bit of time in Calgary too while I was out here, and did a bit of traveling around Alberta. And yeah, I'm seriously considering just going home and squaring a few things away, and maybe coming back this way. It's kind of up in the air right now, but I have the opportunity and the ability to do this kind of anywhere. So I got to give it some serious thought if I'm going to rebuild. carpenter before in a previous life before COVID. All that stuff's gone now. So if I'm going to rebuild or try to do something different, I want to make sure I do it in the right place. I want to spend the next 5 years trying to build a life in Ottawa just to have it all crumble.
They'll take it from you and they'll give it to somebody else that you accuse
Yeah,
of being a striptease artist.
yeah, it's yours now. Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much for hopping on. I enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries.